Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the first of our Circyl live series. This is a series of webinars that allow us to showcase the challenges that we see in our customers and across the general market. And really, the purpose of these webinars is to give ourselves the opportunity to explain the reasons behind why some of these challenges occur, but also how Circyl's digital transformation services can hopefully help you address some of those challenges too. So today's session, as I said, it's the first one that we're delivering. There'll be a number of follow-on webinars over the next few months, but today we're talking about a very common problem, one that we see in almost all of the customers that we work with, and that is Excel hell. So this session titled Avoid the Pain of Excel Hell, how to create clarity from the chaos and build confidence in your data. So over the next 30 minutes, I'm going to be taking you through a range of different challenges related to Excel hell and showing you how we can address them. But hopefully the reason that you've joined this webinar is that you are familiar with this problem. Excel is probably very prevalent within your organization. And really, we see a lot of issues with Excel generally in our day-to-day lives too. So we get started. What you will see is the scale of the Excel problem. So if we just start off, you'll see just a few statistics just to get ourselves started. So with a recent interest group study, there was findings that up to 90% of business spreadsheets contain errors leading to costly mistakes. Up to 80% of UK companies still use Excel for their annual pay reviews, and this can often result in time-consuming and error-prone processes. Finance teams are seen to spend up to 50% of their time purely collecting and verifying the data that they have in their Excel spreadsheets. And more worryingly, over 25% of businesses have actually experienced a data breach related to the sharing of spreadsheets. And we've also seen a number of high-profile incidents in the UK related to Excel. One in particular during COVID times, where a number of COVID test results in the Midlands were lost purely because somebody had saved an Excel spreadsheet in a legacy format. So you can appreciate that the scale of the Excel problem is really quite large. So as we move through this session, what I will be going through and hopefully you'll be taking away at the end of the webinar is I'll be covering off the common challenge. So delving into what is Excel hell in a bit more detail. We're going to look at how we can address Excel hell by creating a unified and centralized data platform that we like to call the single version of the truth. We're going to look into a bit more technical detail and look at how the Microsoft platform, in particular Azure and Power BI, can help to establish that central platform and give you greater analytics. I'll be taking you through some solutions in real world scenarios so you can see how this is actually being applied in practice. All equally as important is to understand how we build that business case. So I'll be taking you through a few ways to measure the return on investment from building these kind of solutions. And finally, leaving you with some top tips from my experience of delivering successful data projects. Now, there will also be time at the end for questions and answers. And you'll be able to see on the right hand side or across the top there is a Q&A button. So if you do have any questions that you'd like to cover off at the end, please feel free to drop them into the chat and I'll go through as many as I can with the time that we've got remaining. Okay, so just to introduce myself first, so my name is Andy McLean. I'm the Data and Analytics Director here at Circyl, and for the last 20 years I've been working across a number of public and private sector organisations, helping them address challenges with data and reporting solutions. For the last 12 years I've worked as a consultant for various Microsoft partners, and it's probably in this time that I've noticed the biggest shift from these kind of projects being very much the focus of IT to moving more towards being business-led projects. So business leaders at the C-suite level being much more intrigued as to how data can influence their day-to-day operations, and IT being much more of a facilitator to help these solutions be created and implemented. My role is very much around devising and implementing data strategies for our customers. So how can we help align the solutions that we build to meet your business needs? And this has involved architecting and delivering the solutions themselves. But increasingly, I'm working with our customers to help advise on digital transformation, slightly wider than just the reporting area. So how can we actually use technology to improve our business across the board, and also doing a lot more work around user adoption, because obviously it's really important that the solutions that we build are used and embedded within our customer organizations. So that's a bit about myself. In terms of who Circyl are, so we are, as I say, the digital transformation experts, and how we do this is built on strength in a number of core competencies, technical competencies you can see here in this visual. So predominantly on the Microsoft stack, ranging from everything from Power BI to Dynamics, all the way through SharePoint, the Power Platform, and also custom web and mobile technologies as well. And it's that breadth of experience and technical capability that allows us to deliver our core capabilities around data analytics, business intelligence, building bespoke business platforms, helping establish modern workplace, ability to use these technologies in day-to-day scenarios, assessing performance and profitability and aligning solutions to that. And also, as I said, building these custom mobile and web applications, which means that we can actually access data on the move. And why we do this is to help our customer organizations become much more digitally transformed and data driven, helping them establish what we call their digital DNA. And this is to help modernize their businesses through the sensible and pragmatic use of Microsoft technologies that allows a business to become much more data driven. And this is through the use of modernized applications, centralized data, digitized documents, task automations, and putting solutions in that allow you to work anywhere. And we've delivered a wide range of successful digital transformation projects over the years for a range of different customers, each with their own unique digital DNA, and that's really important to us. And we believe it's that breadth of experience across a range of different sectors that really helps position ourselves as a partner that can help you on your own digital transformation journey. So that's a bit about who we are. So what I wanted to start with is to get into the detail of what is Excel Hell. And in simple terms, Excel is very much a common scenario, as I said, that we see across all of our different customers. But really, it's where a business has become so heavily reliant on the use of Excel for actually quite complex, typically multi-user or data-intensive tasks. And really, it's just pushed Excel beyond the capabilities or its intended purpose. And you can see around the outside here that there's actually a lot of different risks associated with that. So whether it's wasted time and a strain on resources, or the manual intervention that leads to a risk of errors, lots of different issues come from that over-reliance on Excel. And really, there's a very common reason why that occurs. So we'll go through a few of those now. Excel is typically a very widely accessible tool, which means it's often the first tool that's made available to people for using for the purposes of creating reports or data analysis. And it's very familiar to people, part of the 365 platform. So it's really there and ready to use quite quickly. The next one is that the businesses see Excel as a low-cost solution. So rather than paying upfront for a specialized system, you can obviously build something quite cost effectively in Excel quite quickly, and that appeals to a lot of businesses to get immediate answers. It's quick to set up. So again, historically, you would have seen these kind of things where a need for analysis or a need for a report has gone into IT, maybe into a queue within IT. And businesses or people within the business need answers quicker than that. So actually what they do is they set up their own spreadsheet and almost navigate around IT, and build something that becomes very business critical. The next one is around a lack of proper tools. So again, Excel is fantastic for almost bridging the gap of the tools that don't exist. So as I said, rather than having a specialist system, what Excel does is it actually performs a lot of the functions of these systems, and it helps almost bridge these gaps within your operation. And again, it becomes very much embedded into how things are running on a regular basis. And also as well, people are familiar with Excel. So we often see situations where reporting or a certain process or the way that certain data is captured has always been done in Excel. And there's almost a culture of, that's just how things have been done. And it becomes very familiar to people. And there's a resistance to moving away from that. So very common, very understandable as to why people get themselves into this issue where Excel is so used, so often used within the business. But what's the problem of relying so heavily on Excel? Well, there's quite a few different things. So first of all, we can see some data integrity issues. So an Excel spreadsheet, there's a lot of manual data entry and formulas being entered, complex formulas in some cases, that can lead to mistakes. With multiple people accessing the same report, it's going to be often difficult to work in a collaborative way and to work out what the latest version is. But also storing data in individual spreadsheets typically leads to different copies existing in different departments. So we end up with this kind of siloed approach to data management and reporting. The ability to collaborate and to scale with Excel is very limited. So when multiple users need to be working on the system at the same time as you would in any main system, such as a CRM system, you can end up with locking of that file. Typically, Excel spreadsheets, again, once this process becomes embedded over time, it can result in some quite large data volumes that Excel simply can't handle. And also Excel isn't really set up to have that dynamic refresh of real-time insights. And so we often see people reporting in Excel taking quite a few days or weeks per month to generate the insights needed. And you can imagine that that's actually very limiting in terms of its ability to get the right information in front of the right people at the right time. In terms of security, as we saw in the first couple of slides, there can be challenges around how you actually securely share data in Excel spreadsheets. So we often see duplication of data in spreadsheets being created into separate versions and sent out to people in particular, rather than having one spreadsheet that can handle security and limit the data people can see. We see multiple versions being created. Obviously, it's quite hard to lock down as well. And it's just difficult to audit over time as well. So quite a few security, certainly when it comes to data management, so a lot of challenges there in terms of how we actually can securely work with our data in Excel. And finally, just the inefficiency around relying on Excel so heavily. So updating and maintaining these spreadsheets over time typically requires quite a lot of manual effort, and that only increases. So you see more people thrown at the process. And as the business needs evolve, Excel really starts to struggle to adapt without the potential of, say, introducing errors or maybe just making them not quite fit the needs of the user and having to sacrifice what you really need the solution to deliver. So quite a few challenges there when relying on Excel so heavily. So as you can imagine, a lot of organizations will have a wide range of spreadsheets already within the business, and it'd be very easy to say, well, let's just stick with what we've got. It's a known process, but what's the cost of not really doing anything about Excel, Hel? And there's quite a few of those really. So if you look at these, it touches many points as well within a business. So first off, if we look at customers, so if you've got inaccurate data and reporting from Excel, that can actually lead to poor customer service. And without those reliable insights, businesses may struggle to actually anticipate and fulfill the needs of their customers, which can lead to customer churn. On the people side, people having to constantly work in Excel, deliver manual reports, that can lead to a lot of frustration with repetitive and mundane tasks. And also it can detract from more strategic and engaging work as well. which is what a lot of people want to do and feel that they're contributing to their business. So again, you can see a lot of attrition on the people side. Again, Excel's limitations make it very difficult. We see a lot of reporting in terms of sales and forecasting done in Excel, but actually Excel's limitations hinder the ability to accurately forecast and monitor sales over time, which can actually lead to missed opportunities and a loss of sales revenue. We touched on already the potential for inaccurate data. So again, the lack of true validation in Excel without a lot of pre-configuration means that it just presents the opportunity to put in inaccurate information that we then struggle to know whether we can trust. That lost productivity time related to the same manual tasks being created. We see this a lot in terms of the same reports being created on a weekly or a monthly basis, hours, days, sometimes weeks of effort going into producing these reports, which again just hinders that productivity. And on the security side as well, again, it's just Excel isn't a tool that's been designed to be securely transferring data. And when you leave yourself open to those security breaches, you can see obviously there's a big risk to every business really that relies on this approach. The collaboration side, as I said, that ability to all work within the same environment, Excel has improved in that regard, but still isn't really a true multi-user environment that can be relied upon. And finally, just that as we move more into a modern age around predictive analytics and certainly the use of AI, this chance to innovate, if data is still very manual, very tabular based, and it's all in Excel spreadsheets, it doesn't really foster that culture of innovation. And as I said, it's something that just becomes churning out the same reports on a regular basis. So that's the kind of risk of not addressing Excel hell. And just to show you some examples of where Excel hell exists within the business and how that can be it can be looked at with the Microsoft platform or addressed with the Microsoft platform. So got a few examples here. It could be financial reporting, as I said, that financial or forecasting reporting that you do. It could be how you monitor your sales or your customer engagements. It could be how you track your performance of your projects, or you look at your supply chain, or it could be how you manage your people and understand your joiners, movers and leavers. So these are all typical examples of where we see these reports or this kind of data management process being formed with Excel. And there's lots of different ways within the Microsoft stack that can be addressed and modernized. So if it was from the reporting side, it could be Power BI dashboards. If it was a greater insight into your sales and your customers, you could be looking at a CRM solution with Dynamics. If you want to look at how you're managing your projects, it might be a Power App with underpinned by something like SharePoint with your project documents. If you're doing supply chain with external organizations, you may look at a custom web or mobile application, again with that front end in Power Apps. And again with HR, just again, the onboarding process, trying to simplify that and automate the ability to bring on new people and update all the relevant systems. There's lots of different ways where we've helped in that scenario as well. Okay, so that's a lot about Excel in hell in general. What we're going to talk about predominantly today is the reporting challenge around Excel hell. And as I said, it's something that I see a lot when working with a customer for the first time, and it happens for really good reasons. So in any typical business, you would see generally multiple different sources of information playing a part in how that business operates. Here on the screen, you can see we've got examples of an HR system, a CRM, finance, and the sales system. And there's always that Excel spreadsheet as well that's lurking around in a different department. And that's fine. Data does exist in these specialist systems, and they are specialist systems, but each of them only contains a silo of that particular information. And generally, we need bits of information from each of the different systems in a single place to really get that holistic view of how our business is performing. So what that leads to is people manually extracting the information out into Excel. But you typically need bits of information from each of the different ones, and so you end up with multiple extracts into an Excel spreadsheet, and what that does is it just really creates a lot of risk. So we've now got a dependency on people, we've got that reliance on that process happening. And what happens if those people aren't around in the business? If they're on holiday, do those reports still get produced? If different people are producing the reports, are they all using the same consistent logic? Typically we see that they don't, and that's where we get our inconsistency in the numbers. And what this leads to is different versions of what should really be the same metrics within a business. So here we've got an example of total sales, and you can see the numbers are different because they've been produced by different people. And what that leads to is people not really understanding or trusting the data that's put in front of them. And you can imagine that's in front of lots of different types of users. So we've got suppliers, we've got customers, it could be the board, it could be external. But ultimately, it's very difficult to become data driven if you don't trust the information that you're looking at. So in recent times, Power BI has become much more prevalent. So people are really, Microsoft have pushed Power BI as a tool that can give you greater insight into information and into your business. But typically what we see is that the same process has been applied. It's just that Power BI has been used as a tool rather than Excel. It's still being performed in silo. But ultimately, if you don't address the underlying challenge, what you're effectively doing is still having the same challenge with Excel, but just with a much more fancy modern tool on top. So again, very common how we see this situation playing out, but how can we actually address that? So in terms of putting in a centralized data platform, what we see is we want to leave those source systems as they are, because I said they are specialist systems. What we want to do is to automate the extraction of the data out into what we call a centralized data platform. And that means that actually we can refresh the data much more frequently, remove that opportunity for manual error, apply all our logic consistently. So in that centralized data platform, there are some real important principles for that trusted data foundation. So first of all, diversity. So bringing these different silos of information together gives us different context and different insight and really builds the full picture behind our performance. Data has to be timely. So pushing data in front of the right people at the right time, at a time where they can make a positive intervention, is really important. Data has to be accurate, obviously. So ensuring that the information is trusted and we can actually act on it with confidence. Data has to be secure, so protecting it from people that aren't allowed to see the information, but also providing a much more tailored service to people and presenting them with the information they need to see. So by having one set of reports that can be filtered for the report user that's viewing them at the time. Data has to be discoverable, so it has to be easy to understand and easy to find. That's really key. Business users are comfortable with the data they're looking at and know and trust what they're looking at. And finally, it's consumable, so formatting it in a way for analytics rather than how it's structured in each of the sources, which isn't particularly user-friendly for non-technical people. So when we're building these kind of solutions, it's really important to focus on a business outcome. So it goes through a number of different steps typically. So bringing all your different data sources together. The next step is to move and combine the information, so extracting it from the different systems into a centralized location. And this is where we store the data in a single format, but we transform it into a structure for analytics, which is really key. How can we get our answers as quickly as possible? And once we've got that real good structure for analytics, it's then about making it discoverable, easy to analyze by end users, so they're able to go and act and improve on the services or the areas of the business that the information is telling them, and ultimately deliver that business outcome. And that's what helps drive our return on investment. Okay, so what does that look like? So in terms of a modern data architecture, so within the Azure platform, we can pull information in from a range of different sources, more than ever before. So it could be an on-premises database. Most cloud services now have an API. And as I said, it can still load data from those Excel spreadsheets. It's a cloud-based platform that can be accessed anywhere. So we pull all that information into our centralized platform. And there's a range of different tools within the Microsoft stack. You might be aware of something called Fabric as well, which is Microsoft's latest unified platform that is gradually accelerating as the way forward away from the Azure stack. But ultimately, what I'm taking you through today does apply in both of these. The same principles apply across both of these separate platforms. And ultimately, you've got tools such as Data Factory, which allows us to extract the information from the different sources. Data Lake, where we store our information, clean the data, and get it into that unified format. And then our data warehouse is where we structure it for analytics. And it's at that point we put this, what we call a semantic layer over the top. This is our business friendly representation of the data, and it's where all the relationships, all these different steps that have happened to the data have been performed, and it's actually using now business friendly terminology that your report users and end users will be familiar with. And what that allows us to do is to expose the data in a range of familiar Microsoft tools as part of everybody's day-to-day activities. So whether that's building dashboards in Power BI, dynamic presentations in PowerPoint, still using the data in Excel. So if you still want to browse the data and do pivot style analysis or Excel-based reports, that's still possible. And obviously people are a lot more aware now of predictive analytics and AI, the use of Copilot, and all of these technologies benefit from that single semantic layer that we can see on the screen there. So once we've got that in place, it means that however reports are being created by whoever within the business, we should always get the same answer, builds trust in the numbers, and ensures that the various people at different levels of the organization, either internally or externally, are getting numbers that they trust at a time that they can act with the information and become much more data driven. So that's the kind of technical implementation of the solution. But as I said, it's really important to start with that return on investment in mind and build that business case. So for me, there's three key areas when you're looking at return on investment. So first, it should be looking to how can we get the solution to help us generate more revenue or increase our profitability. The next thing is about saving time and money through automation. So all of these manual tasks, repetitive tasks we talked about, how can we automate that and actually make people more productive? And the final one, which is often overlooked, is actually how can we improve the experience of both our people and our customers, which ultimately should lead to the other two as well. So I tend to find that if you deliver one of these different points of ROI, the others tend to follow as they're all very closely linked. So finally, just wanted to take you through what we call a real world example. So this was a customer we worked with a few years ago now, and this is on, they're a sales organization. And they had the three sources that I talked about, so HR system, CRM system, and sales system. And to start with, it was the head of sales that was doing the majority of the reporting on a monthly basis in Excel. And the challenge was that the information was not available down to the lowest possible level of the salespeople. Obviously, there's a reliance on a very senior figure to produce the reports, repetitive tasks, lots of time being taken, and the lack of insight at a time that the sales team could do anything with that. So we embarked on a project to implement a modern solution, as I've shown previously. And in the first phase, we brought data in from the sales system. And that allowed us to produce a suite of reports that automated the extraction of the data. So they're removing the manual task for the head of sales, but also making this available to sales teams, team leaders, and the individual salespeople themselves, all through one report that was security trimmed. So that every person that logged in just saw the information they were allowed to see. And that was underpinned with a security model behind the scenes that ensured the right security was being applied. And that was really well received. But we looked at that further. It was simply looking at sales versus target. And what we wanted to do was to understand greater context behind each salesperson's performance. So we looked at other areas of the business and we pulled in their CRM system. And what that allowed us to look at was their pipeline of opportunities, their engagements with their customers. And ultimately, what that led to was understanding each salesperson's general activities and their performance in greater detail. So was it that they were putting a lot of great effort in, but weren't necessarily seeing that through the sales results? Or did a particular salesperson have a customer that was quite light touch in terms of effort to maintain that customer? And where was the best practice we could share across the teams? And again, that further enhanced those reports that we looked at. The final thing we did was to integrate their HR system, and that also impacted the ability to understand each salesperson's performance. And now we could understand the impact of sickness, we could understand the impact of planned leave, working patterns, all these different aspects. And really, it was when we brought all three areas together that we truly understood each salesperson's particular performance and how that actually rolled up through the different teams and across the organization in general. So all of that individual information that was previously being performed by one person has now been exposed to the whole team. And there were lots of benefits that the customer experienced. So first of all, we saw an increase in the company performance because they were much more proactive in terms of monitoring their sales targets and their performance against those targets. And we saw greater increase in revenue because they were able to stay on top of the opportunities and the future work that maybe had fallen between the cracks. We saw some efficiency savings, as I say, reducing that time of a senior figure having to produce the reports on a regular basis. We saw an increase in the actual improvements in each team because we could understand how each team performed and the particular people that could be champions in each team, so we could share best practice and actually make the whole business perform better. We saw an improvement in engagement, so the sales team understanding and having their own information in front of them on a much more regular basis made them feel more involved and more part of contributing to something bigger than just their individual performance. And that drove greater engagement in the overall process. And finally, we saw improved customer experience. So being able to deliver a much more tailored and data-driven service to their customers generally saw a greater customer satisfaction from some of the surveys that they were producing as well. Okay, so just final point now on, as I say, top tips from our experience of delivering these kind of projects. So first on is just to start small and to iterate. So don't worry about building these solutions all in one go. These projects now are typically much more successful when they're delivered in an agile and iterative way. So find an area that you believe would have a real value business case, start there and scale. As you can see, the solution that I showed you is very scalable in that regard, in that you don't have to know everything at the start. The next one is to focus on that use case. So again, make sure the solution delivers the business case and it isn't simply a technical solution that might end up becoming a bit of a white elephant. The engagement with the stakeholders is really key. So making sure that you engage with the right people from both the business and the technical side as early as possible makes people feel they're part of the project and its success. But you do need this involvement from both business and technical to really bring this solution together. Embrace the data quality issues that you like to find. So we typically see these kind of projects show gaps in your data. Maybe it's data you're not capturing at the moment and you want to start capturing, or maybe there's data that just isn't of the right quality. Seeing that and going back and improving it and putting a business process in place to improve it at source will ultimately lead to better results in the long run. Prioritize the modeling of your data. So when I said that we produce that data model built for analytics, it's really important that that model reflects the whole of your business. I mean, it hasn't been built just too specifically for one particular purpose. And so the data modeling aspect rather than the visualization is where you can make the biggest improvements. If you get the model right, everything else tends to be a lot easier in the long run. Manage people's expectations from a reporting perspective. So we use a tool called Figma, which is fantastic for building mock-ups, really quick mock-ups that look like Power BI reports. And the quicker we put those in front of the end users, one, it sets expectations, but two, it allows people to give us feedback and make sure the final reports are delivered on time to a level that the users expect. Support those users through adoption. It's a daunting thing. If we're going to move away from Excel hell, then it's really important that these new technologies are adopted, and just accept that people will be naturally a little bit skeptical to start with and want to return to what they feel familiar with. So it's really important that you support people, have a really good plan for how you're going to help train people up and give them that ongoing support when those questions naturally come later on down the line. And finally, just use each phase to learn and move forward. Don't expect to get everything right first time. Take the learnings from each of the phases that you do and just look to try and improve with each phase that you deliver, because you'll learn more about the technology and what you're trying to monitor as a business, the greater and further on you go through your project. Okay, so that's everything that I wanted to cover around Excel hell and how we can help. If you would like to have a free initial consultation, then you can visit us online at circyl.co.uk for more information. And we will be sending out a follow-on form as well, just to get some feedback on the webinar itself, but also give you an opportunity to connect with us and to follow up with any additional questions. Okay, so that's everything from the session itself. We've still got a little bit of time left to go through any questions in the Q&A. So if you have got any questions and you want to follow on through the contact form, please do. But other than that, thank you very much. What we're really interested